bit about my educational background. I'll just start back where things were relevant. I'm a retired soldier, a retired one, and served in the United States Army for a lifetime, it seemed like. Raised a family. Retired in 1998. Spent most of my time probably at Fort Bragg. Spent a lot of time over in Europe. And I think from that standpoint, I learned so much. I went in the Army as a high school dropout and didn't have much going for me. Definitely had no real skills. But I had the opportunity to be able to travel the world, marry my sweetheart, have some youngins, and raise a family. I'm from Arizona. Born here, raised here, went off to serve, and came back home. After retirement from the Army, I wanted to do something for myself, so I started a company, computer company, and quickly that company, from a $35 investment, started making some serious money in the course of 1 year. I cleared $130,000 the first year and built up from there. So I was very fortunate and very happy that God blessed our family like that. Through the time, I started taking an interest in emergency management. I would volunteer. I had skill sets that made me uniquely qualified to do certain things, such as recovery of evidence, recovery of decadence, and things like that. I got interested in swiftwater rescue, backcountry search and rescue. And these things, man, it kind of fed my type A personality that kids of my nature had. So I did a lot of that stuff for many, many years. And went to school. I looked around and you know what? Kids were all educated. They're off doing their thing. Mama's educated, off doing her thing, and she's going, working in a professional job. And here I am, high school dropout. The only one I was smarter than was the dog, and I was starting to question that. So, I went back to school, and it really gave me the opportunity to do that. Sold my business in 2010 and decided to do this full time. And that's what I've been doing for the last little bit. My degrees, I have a bachelor's degree in emergency management and have a master's degree in emergency management and Homeland Security. So that's my qualifications. I've been working the job off and on for about 15 years, full-time for the last 5-6 years. So it's been a fun ride. Done a lot of good things. People all the time ask me what my job's about. I tell them it's about people. Because everything I do is about people. If we mitigate a hazard, we mitigate it because it impacts people. If we respond to a fire, a flood, a tornado, whatever, earthquake, we respond because people have been impacted. If we recover because people have been impacted. And if we prepare, it's to make sure that we're able to do our job better to serve people. So my job's really about people, and that's what I really do. So, that being said, I was asked to come to the lodge tonight and speak with you guys, and when you guys have had enough, raise your hand and say, Uncle, I'll let you tap out. But one of the things that I wanted to speak to you guys a little bit about, I hear a lot of different things. I was a member of a church, and next thing you know, they're talking about wanting to add security for the church, and Grandma was going to be packing. Well, I felt that I remembered a verse in the Bible where Jesus looked at Peter and he said, Peter, he who lives by the sword dies by it. And, Peter's going lopping folks' heads off, or their ears anyway. And Jesus fixed it, put his ear back on, and he said, Peter, those who live by the sword die by it. And I had a fundamental malfunction with that because I think in whatever we consider our risk and our hazards are, we need to keep our values of who we are as people, who we are as Masons, in the forefront. And I know that before I come to the lodge, this goes into the camp console. Why? We all made that promise, right? Nothing metal, no weapons or anything in the lodge. So we're torn between some of the serious concerns that we have in our Masonic values and our Masonic beliefs. And so we're going to have to take a look at that and measure how we can do certain things to provide the security necessary to be able to protect not only ourselves but our brother. Right? We are our brother's keeper. And if we learn any one thing in Masonic teachings is That's a true statement. We look after one another, right? So, let's consider that. I'd like to share with you that, in my mind, one of the greatest pitfalls when you start taking a look at the various hazards and the various risks that we, not only us, but our families, our businesses, and whatever, face, a lot of times they get blown out of proportion, and there's a reason for that. We see a school attack in Connecticut, and it's on the news 24/7. We're bombarded with this school attack in Connecticut. Anybody know how far Connecticut is? Long
About a
ways,
week.
right? It's not like it's down in Peoria, right?
4,200 miles.
It's like it might as well be 5,000.
Yeah.
Right? But from that standpoint, I look at that and I say, well, you know, when I'm evaluating a risk, I need to put it in perspective. I need to really understand what that risk truly means to me. And there's some key terms that I'd like to share with you, because there's some things, I mean, are we at risk for an asteroid strike? I suppose there's some measure of risk, right? What about a comet? You think a comet could hit Earth? Yeah, I suppose there might be some measure of probability that could happen, right? But when you put it in the span of a proper scope, you're able to actually drill down and see what those risks actually are. And I'd like to share with you a few concepts. I'd like to share with you the concept of what a hazard is, what probability is, what vulnerability is, what impacts are, and how do we define risk. The first thing is, when I take a look at a hazard, you know, we here in Arizona live in a hazardous environment. Anybody disagree? Wildfire. Anybody here for the Indian fire? Okay. Anybody here for the Yarnell fire? That's hazard right there. That fire is a hazard. And I tell my folks as I'm teaching them, and I train my staff, and I talk to them about it. I said, you know, a tornado going across the fields in Texas is just an awesome event. It is really cool to watch up until it hits its first house. Okay? The hazard is the tornado. The tornado is not a risk. The probability of a tornado hitting a house, however, that's a whole different element. Same thing with a flood. A flood in a valley, it's just an awesome event. You know, you go down on the Mississippi, you can see water spread across the Mississippi for several miles. That's awesome. It's powerful, right? But it's just a flood until the first house goes into water. It's when people are impacted that it becomes a risk. Does that make sense? Have I lost anybody? Okay, so when we take a look at that, the next thing that we have to understand in order to define risk is probability. And probability is pretty straightforward. On your paper, I listed what a probability is. We passed that around. And it basically says the probability of an event is measured by the chance that the event will occur as a result of an experiment. Okay? So, how often will this event occur? And you can scope that down even more, because now you can say, how often will that event occur here? Right? Or you can say within the city. Or you can scope it out a little bit further and say within the county. Or you can scope it out a little bit further and say within the state. Then you can make it a little bit larger. How large can it, how often will it occur in the southwest United States? Then you can even make it a little bit larger if you want to kind of increase that probability a little bit more. And say how often will that occur in the western United States, or in the United States, or somewhere in the world. Right? So you have to think of probability in terms of an incident occurring in your area. Because how is it going to affect you? So there's different tools we use. I use the Homeland Security Information Network. I get feeds from that. They send me emails telling me that the world's falling apart over here, and the world's falling apart over here, and this is happening here, and this is happening there. So I get information that comes in all the time. And some of that information is relevant. I look for keywords like Phoenix, Arizona. and that is kind of how I start scoping what probability is for an event. So, in that probability, what is the likelihood of that occurrence, and if it's going to occur, where is it going to occur in relationship to me? How far away am I going to be from? Where is it? Is it going to be right here? I mean, because that has a whole different meaning than if it occurs in Austin, Texas, or if it occurs in Atlanta. Okay? Vulnerability, well, when I think about vulnerability, I think about what's important and what can be affected. Okay? Obviously, my family kind of sits at the top of the list. Right? My lodge, my brothers, my job. These types of things are all things which could be impacted by an event, by a disaster. So when I take a look at this, I start identifying where my vulnerabilities are. Well, our economy is vulnerable. Our community is vulnerable, right? Our homes, our housing subdivisions are definitely vulnerable, right? Now let me ask you a question. What exactly does impact mean? When I think about impact, what does that mean? What would it mean to you? We identified what a vulnerability are. We're vulnerable, right?
If the grocery store shelves are empty, it has an impact.
Yes. Yes. So, how can we conclude what impact, if we were to define that, how would we define that? Do you think that might be where a hazard intersects a vulnerability? The impacts are the result of that intersection, of where these two meet, because of this, is a direct result in what the impacts are. Does that make sense? So where a hazard, a tornado, earthquake, terrorist event, the likelihood of that happening, right, and what the results of that happening are our impacts, the results. Now, the reason why I'm boring you to death on this is because to understand risk, you have to understand what a hazard is. You have to understand what a probability is. And you have to be able to put it in its proper perspective. Because there's a 100% probability that an asteroid at some point in the future is going to hit Earth. 100%, I guarantee it's going to happen. Right? But when? Is it going to happen in 1,000 years? 1,000,000 years? Will I even care? Will I even be here? So that puts things in perspective. Okay? So we look at that and we have our hazards defined, we have probability defined, we know what a vulnerability is. We've talked about impacts and what impacts are as a result of that hazard meeting up with the vulnerability and the results therefrom, right? Now what we haven't talked about is risk. And when we look at risk, there's a lot of ways to quantify it. There's a lot of ways to say, well, this is risk. And a lot of people look at a hazard and they say, well, that's risk. No, it's not. It's a hazard. Fire is an awesome tool up until the first house gets hit. Right? Awesome tool. So when I look at that, there's a few things that we do. A simple formula I always teach students is that probability times impacts equal risk. And there's more complicated, but the simplest one I've ever seen is this right here. So, one of the things that we did was we went out and we said, well, we need to make this simple. I need to make this to where anybody, any intern, any student, anybody can take this little bitty formula right here and be able to define and quantify risk. Maybe not to the fine detail of a comprehensive study, but enough to be able to say, well, this is definitely more probable than this one. So we came up with what I call a simple risk index or analysis. And basically what we do on that is we go through and we talk about what are the most probable hazards to a vulnerable place. Okay? And we talk about the impacts. If this were to happen, what would be the result of it? And then we grade it. And on the bottom here, I give you kind of a grading scale of 1 through 5. And I call this my 5 scale. I have a 100 scale, that I use for different things, and there's different models I'll throw that into. When I'm doing a more comprehensive study, I'll use a 100 scale. When I'm doing a quick down and dirty, well, where does this rank in everything? I do use the 5 scale because it's real simple, and I don't have to take my shoes off. Okay? So this here makes it pretty simple for me. So let me ask you a question. Let's identify some hazards, and I'm going to talk about a few distinctly. Okay? And one of them that I want to talk to you about is man-caused hazards. Hazards in my field come in 3 flavors. They're natural events, severe winter storms, earthquakes, floods, wildfires. These things are natural events, okay? And we get our share of them here in Arizona. And Yavapai County over the last 5 years has had more than its fair share. We've had other people's share, okay? But there are also those technical hazards. Those hazards which are a result of failure of technology, okay? And those types of hazards could be anything from someone leaning up against a light switch down at APS and turning out Southern California's light bulbs, which I absolutely loved. I thought that was a great thing. Okay? So, from that perspective, that's a type of a technical hazard, right? A server hard drive goes out, next thing you know, a business is down. Boom. Road burls down on New River, north of Anthem, eat through road burls, right? Eat through a fiber optic line and take out all of northern Arizona's data lines. Which, that was the excuse I gave people when they called the office. I said, it's just a bunch of road burls down there, data fiber lines. But, so those are technical hazards, okay? The vulnerability of that was everybody lost their business for a day until they were able to replace that fiber optic, so millions and billions of dollars were lost. That's a real disaster. Right? Especially when you're living on a shoestring budget in a small business. Another type of hazard that we have that we see very preeminently right now across the world is terrorism. And we see that organizations across the world have hate towards us. And Masons have been a part of every famous conspiracy theory on the face of the earth since time immemorial. Okay, so they blame us for everything, and they don't know anything about us. And we don't do anything to promote what we actually do in any measure to counter any of that. So, we don't tell anybody we're called a secret society, but you can go on the internet and find absolutely every part of every ritual that we do. Am I right? It's there. You can read it verbatim, right? We print it in books. We have books we pass out, right? We print a ritual in books. So I don't know what's so secret about our society. I think we're a society with secrets. And whenever someone asks me what are the secrets of Masonry, I say, you know what? We as Masons have ways that we understand who we are. And that's what we hold true. That's what we hold dear. And every corporation on the face of the planet has secrets. Go to an executive board meeting somewhere and just sit in there. See how quickly they ask you to leave. Okay? So that being said, we do have organizations out there. I can tell you that within the United States, threats have been made against Masons. Okay? I can tell you that within the state of Arizona, I know of no threat. But I can tell you within the United States, there are threats. Remember me telling you about that scope a few moments ago? You have to put this in perspective. The scope is, on a national level, threats have been made. Okay? And those threats, when I hear the term credible threat, that means that there is actionable intelligence associated with it. Okay? I don't know how credible these threats are. But I can tell you that there are threats that have been made against Masons. And not only Masons. There have been threats made against evangelical churches and Christians in general. Okay? On a national level. And we've seen this happen, kind of carried out in South Carolina a few months back. Okay? So, some people are acting upon the threats. Now, when I say terrorism, I have to kind of put it in perspective. How many of you all believe that terrorists are just killers? What? Just killers?
No.
Huh?
There's more to it than that.
Well, explain it, brother.
The basic act of terrorism is to make you and everybody associated with you afraid.
Why?
That will increase your vulnerability. And it will cause you to not necessarily, well, keep in mind, yes, but also not act.
So you're saying there's a political element to terrorism?
Oh, of course.
There is.
Yes.
Yeah. So we see that some terrorism, or probably most all terrorism, has a point. There's a purpose behind it, right?
Mhm.
So you're telling me that they don't kill just to kill, they kill for a purpose?
They want to, if they're going to kill, they're going to kill with the most effectiveness they can for whatever group they're targeting.
On the world stage. Okay. On the world stage, terrorists have the tendency to push a political agenda, and the whole purpose of terrorism is to push an agenda, to force a political will that does not exist, such as Palestinians' freedom, free Palestine. Okay? So, in that, you take a look at what the PLO had done for 30 years, okay, since the 60s. What did they do? Killed folks, blew up buses, all of that for a purpose. And the purpose was the world stage. And if you take a look at a lot of thought out there today, without characterizing the type of thought, but if you take a look at thought out there today, what do you see? Sympathy for the message of that world stage, right? Free Palestine, right? Well, don't you care about Palestinian children? Well, of course I care about Palestinian children, but their mom was strapping a bomb to them. You follow me? So, it's a matter of taking a look at it. So from a terrorism standpoint, I want to talk about that today for just a few moments, about the lodge, and about our susceptibility to something like that. We're going to work out some math in a minute. Please keep your shoes on, brother. We'll be able to do this real simple. Okay? So what I want to do is kind of list a couple hazards you guys see. You guys are learned brothers. You guys have been in the lodge for a while. You've been here. You know this building. You know the facilities. What kind of hazards does this building have? What kind of hazards do our brothers have?
One entry.
One entry. Is that a true statement?
We have a single entry, but we have multiple exits.
Like nobody know about it.
I heard it.
One entry.
One entrance, yeah.
How about there's a bank underneath this? That ought to draw some attention.
You can find it.
Okay. What else? What does that one entry, what hazards could affect this one thing right here? What hazards affect that? Fire. Can I use red?
Sure.
I'll use red. Where's my infantry guys at?
You.
Your brother. Quick question. I want to wipe out the enemy. What do I have to do on the battlefield to be able to set up an appropriate place to do that?
Gather intel,
Say again?
gather intel, send out recon.
Right? Do I want to try to channel them to a single point? Will I set my crew serves up in such a way as that I can sweep that area? Do I want to limit their exposure to be able to retreat? All of these things are very critical things, right? Does one entry play into that as a risk or as a hazard? Yeah, right? So it could be an attack. We could say that the lodge could be attacked. And if it was attacked, what would they do? And what would be their most likely way to do that? Okay, so we got fire, we got possible some type of malevolent action. Okay, anything else?
One electrical unit to shut down the whole joint.
One electrical unit?
There's one electrical panel.
So that's a single point of failure, right?
Yep. Closes down communication, closes down, lighting, electricity, heat, everything. Phone.
We still got water in the bathrooms, so we're okay there.
Elevator,
Huh?
elevator, you gotta run down the stairs.
Okay. What else do we have? Any other type of hazards? We're gonna define these hazards here in just a minute. What else?
Is there a single point of failure for the phone system?
On the what system?
Phone, telephone?
Yeah, column, right here. Brother identified it.
Oh, I didn't see the comma on there, sorry.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other hazards to this building?
I would say that, if I'm an assassin or someone wanna do something, we're all located in one same big room. We very seldom are not in one room. We're either in the restaurant room, we're in the lodge room, but generally everybody's in one room, get everybody one shot.
Well, bum rushing. What else? These are
Ventilation?
good things. I like it.
Ventilation?
Ventilation?
Mhm.
Is the ventilation port here?
No, if you shut down the electricity, then there's no air or heat.
We have it right here, vent. I learned that in college. We failed to spell a word correctly, just make it real messy so you can't read it. What else? Anything else? So we got fire as a hazard. We've got a man-caused hazard right here. We got three different types of hazards here. So we got natural,
I got one more for you.
okay,
Generally speaking, although we have a master of the lodge, there's no security, or attack mode or ways to prevent it, carry it out, secure it, etc. Because everybody is in one room and there's not a real leader. If somebody's attacking me, you think I'm gonna listen to the worship master? That guy's in trouble. So you don't have a security plan, a plan to evacuate, kill, stop, smother. You don't have that, in most companies, they have a written plan to take care of things like this.
I think that's something we should discuss here before we close out. But let me share with you what we got. We got three basic types of hazards here that you brethren have identified. It wasn't me, I didn't come up here and identify these. You guys said fire, which is a natural hazard. We said some type of attack or something that where the brothers are threatened. That's man-caused. And then we have a technical hazard, single point of failure within the building itself, where we lose electricity, communications, and ventilation, right? So that's pretty good. If I was an NFPA guy, I would say you hit all three major points of 1600 right there, chapter 5. Boom. You guys got it done, okay? Now, let's take a look at what the probability and what are the impacts. And we're going to look for each of these. Brother, can I impose upon you? Would you be kind enough, so I don't forget, because I'm getting older and my beard's turning gray, but would you write down on the back of your paper, fire, attack, and single point failure. Just write these three things down here, because I'm gonna erase this board, so I got a clean board. Don't let me forget this, guys. Okay. If I had to learn the lectures right now, I'd be in trouble. Okay, so the first one we talked about was fire. I want to talk about, first thing is probability. Okay? Would you guys say that a fire is likely never to happen?
Oh, no.
Would you say that it could happen? Will you say that it will happen at some point? Will you say that it happens often? Or would you say that it's an absolute certainty that a fire will occur? How would you guys rank that?
Number two.
Number two.
We're going to give this a 2. Okay? Now, the impacts. Would a fire be merely an inconvenience? Would a fire have light or moderate property loss? Would a fire be a significant loss with possible injuries? Would a fire cause heavy property loss or some death? And before we answer this, I want to take a look at the qualities of this building. Okay? And then the last one is, would a fire be severe property loss and or death?
4.
Okay? Well, let's take a look up. Everybody look up right now. What do you see?
Sprinkler.
The size of this building requires that there be sprinklers on every floor of this building. Okay? So if we had a fire, what kind of damage are we going to see in conjunction with that fire?
Water.
Okay. Now, we know that we're going to have a fire, and what is the probability of that fire getting very large?
Pretty good. We're wide open. There's nothing here. It's going to just go, run.
Okay. Think those sprinklers will mitigate that?
I do.
Depends on where the fire is. If it starts above, then, you know,
Nothing up on the top of the roof.
yeah.
More likely in the kitchen.
Yes, exactly.
Depends on who's cooking. If you have me in there, your ass is hurting. Okay? So,
Plus, we know that the fire department is going to be here in less than 6 minutes.
we hope.
Well, that's
It's just across the
that's
road,
what
guys.
they said.
Pretty close.
From the time it's
Unless
reported.
they round out
From
that
the time
day.
it's reported.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we have-
So the averages is gonna be 6 minutes or less.
Yes.
Yeah. So from that, we'll look at that, okay? Now, we're gonna be taking a look at a few things. Let's take a look at it. Let's say that the fire occurred when nobody was here. What would be the damage to the building at that point?
I'd still
I think
say
it's number 3,
Okay.
I would think so.
What if we're in the middle of a lodge meeting? Everybody's inside the lodge, and a fire occurs in the kitchen, nobody's in there. Tyler's out in the thing, and he smells smoke. Okay? Now we're throwing in some different things. I want you guys to think about this. Because what is the probability of that occurring? Denny left the toaster on. Okay? Denny left the coffee pot on, burnt the damn lodge down. Denny. Right?
That is not good.
Natural gas.
Natural gas leak, any one of a number of things. Now, this is a commercial building with gas, so there's some risk there. I would say that we would be looking at, probably in most instances, significant loss to the building. And I would say, just guessing, and please feel free to disagree with me, possibility of some injury. Why do I say that? Because as I get older, one of you guys is going to have to help me downstairs, right? And how many of you guys know where the emergency escapes are around here?
That's what I was gonna bring up. That's what I was gonna bring up. Hardly anybody knows about the one at the other end of the building that way.
Right,
It's not marked.
exactly.
The only one everybody's familiar with is where they come in the building.
That's right.
But there is a very wide step, everything to go out to the front of the parking lot.
And it's
front of the
concrete.
back. Huh?
It's concrete.
And it's concrete.
Yeah,
But very few people know about that.
Yeah,
There's
but
one in
there's
the
no
laundry room,
sign.
there's one by the kitchen.
Yep.
Up here, there's, at least one back in this corner.
Yeah.
But
Very few
there's
people
not-
know where they are, and they're not properly marked.
evap coolers are back there.
Yep.
So, goes back to that, we have one point of entry and multiple escapes. Okay, well that mitigates it, but man, some of our brothers need help.
Watch this. If I took an overview of all the brothers that come to Lodge, okay? No offense meant, you guys, no offense meant, please. I'm already blackballed in some other places, but no offense meant, but I'm here to tell you, I'll bet you 70% of them can't get up and run outside.
Exactly.
I would increase that number to 85.
You would increase it? I'm just being nice,
No? Hey,
but. yeah.
Well, and that's something we need to talk about, because that increases the probability of injuries to some deaths.
Yes,
So I would say that we're not really looking at 3,
4.
we're looking at 4.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because there might be some of us can't quite make it out the door. And it might be that, you know, the smoke in the air is gonna really kind of play havoc on some of our brothers.
And that'll increase because some of us will go help the brothers to get out and put ourselves in liability.
Brother, I expect it. I expect you to
That's what
come
we're
see
supposed
me,
to do.
because we are supposed to do that.
That's the rule.
We're not the only users up here.
Say again, sir?
We're not the only users up here, Eastern Star.
That's true. That's true. So, that being said, I think that 1.3, somewhere between 1.3 and 2 would be a good assessment out of a 5 scale. So, out of 5 possible, we're saying 1.3, and I'll go as high as a 2 for that one. Brother, would you be kind enough to put 1.3 next to fire? Okay. How many of you guys feel that that's a pretty good assessment of where that's at? Out of 5 possible, we're saying that's 1.3.
Yeah, yeah.
You like that? Okay. Well, let's take a look at the next one. Now, as I look at this building, we talked about how infantry works, right? Funneling the bad guys to a place that you're choosing to be able to take their hides out. Do you reckon terrorists do that? Absolutely they do. That's why they plant secondary devices. So I suppose that there are probably some things that we need to take a look at. First, let's do the probability. Now, when we do the probability, I want to ask you a question. Do we want to look at this from a national point, global point, national point, regional point, state, or do we want to look at Prescott, Arizona?
No,
How many of y'all feel that we ought to just look at Prescott? Okay, let's look at just Prescott. I don't know of any direct threat that has been made to a Masonic body. If you see me not show up, but I don't know of any direct threat that has been made against this lodge. Does anybody know of any direct threat?
We had our website attacked.
You what?
We had our website hacked, actually,
Okay.
and we traced it back.
Come out of China?
It wasn't coming out of China, and we couldn't find out exactly who it was, but it made reference to those infidels wearing white gloves.
Okay.
We cleaned up the website, but that was.
Was it, one of the things, did you pass that on? Anytime you get anything like that, brother, please contact me and we'll pass that on to the appropriate people.
Okay.
Yeah, if that ever happens again, you call me and then I'll call some friends and
Well,
my
was
friends
it-
will visit us.
The reason that we left it as, you were talking about credibility. The hack was that it changed some of the menu items on the drop-down menus for the website to instead of like going to Calendar or whatever like that, it was going to Viagra advertisements.
Yeah.
So
I don't know that, now, that, they would have folks, I can take an IP address, there's things called IP traps.
Right.
And these IP traps reside at the ISP level, okay? And your router has IP traps, but at the ISP level, they record every bit of traffic like that. Now, I can take an IP address and I can plug it into a program, and the program will tell me who owns that IP address. So that gives me a point of origin, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, that gives me a point of origin. And then I can follow that back even more. And I can, because one of the tricks of folks that do things like that is they bounce from this router to this router to this router, and they'll go through 3 or 4 different routers, and each router attaches a new IP address to it, right? And what that does is it kind of mask their approach to your website, okay? So you can go back and forensically pull that data from each one of those routers, each one of those servers that are servicing that. And that'll give you a point of origin. When I was working in the computer industry, I found that the majority of my corporate hacks were coming out of China. They were coming out of China. So I pass that information on.
I'll bring up something. I had an office in Beijing, China, okay, 3rd floor. And we'd hear this ruckus down the hallway, and I'd send my girl down there. Her name was Lily Liu, and her father is General Liu, who interrogated Powell when he dropped the U-2 in, okay? Anyway, she runs out, she come back, she goes, one 12-year-old and 14-year-old, and I think the other one's 16-year-old, just hacked into another American bank account. And I'm hearing this racket go down all the time. Got tired of it, so I sent her down there. And that's when she come back, hacked into another American bank account from Beijing, China.
Oh, yeah. But they actually have a city there that is kind of in the central country of China. That's all they do is hack all day long. And their cyber warfare capability is immense.
Yeah.
It is immense. They've capitalized on that. So let's talk about probability of Prescott, Arizona. How many of you guys feel like it's not very likely, it would never happen, that we would have an attack here?
Oh.
Never. How many of you guys say that it could happen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many of you guys say that it will happen at some point?
Will happen what?
Will happen here at some point. Okay,
Oh, I
4.
changed my deal. I don't say that.
Okay. How many of you guys feel that it happens pretty often? Forget it. How many of you guys feel that it's an absolute certainty? So, by show of hands, how many say that 3 is the appropriate number for that? Keep them up for just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's the majority. How many say 2? Okay, brother. We don't want you to feel disenfranchised over here. Okay. So we got a 3 there for probability. Now, let's take a look at what our hazard is. Okay? Our hazard is an attack, and we use how many different exits to get out of here on a given night?
1.
Okay? Would that be an infantryman's dream?
Yeah.
Doggone right it would be. I said that crew serve up, nobody's coming out. Okay? So that's kind of where that's going to be at, right? So do you think the loss of life would be high?
100%.
Well, no, because once I hear the pop, 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 then he's going out another door. If I hear that 7-round burst, then he's going out the back door.
Vulnerability is
You won't
high.
have a chance.
If I were leading that, they would be mostly knives until you had to use guns. So there wouldn't be any pop, pop, pop for a long time.
Okay. So from that, we could say that although the property loss is not very high, that there is going to be some deaths, or that there would be a severe loss of life.
Severe.
How many feel that it would be severe loss of life should that happen?
That happened on Carlos.
Okay, that looks like everybody. Okay, how many some? You think so?
Great.
There's always one in the lodge, I'm just saying.
And I don't know, they're not with me.
Okay, so from the impact standpoint,
5.
Gracias, señor.
So your risk
Okay,
is
5. Okay,
3.
so, man, didn't even take your shoes off, Scotty. I'm impressed. I'd have to take my shoes off on that. Okay, so we're saying that the risk index on this, and remember, this is a down and dirty quick assessment. It's not meant to be detailed by any measure. When I go in and do a detailed analysis, I look at all of the factors and then I give it a weighted value. And I look at mitigation, I look at all these different things as to how it impacts the impacts, how it impacts the vulnerabilities. And so it's like wildfire. Our wildfire index for this part of Yavapai County is 3.9. Pretty dadgum high, man.
Yeah.
3.9 is huge, right? But then I also have to factor in, well, wait a minute. We've only spent about $20 million over the last 20 years trying to mitigate this stuff, and it has had a net effect. I mean, the forest, there's areas where we've thinned it out enough that we can put a fire on the ground if we have to and put it out. So we've done a lot of work in mitigation in Yavapai County. So our actual risk index after mitigation for Yavapai County, instead of that 3.9, is probably 3.4. Progress. So,
He mentioned recon. They would do the recon on this.
Yes.
And they would know the Knights of Eastern Star here. They love soft targets, no pun intended. They would, I think, go much more for the ladies.
there's a high probability that would be a true statement. I would. I'm much rather fight a lady than a burly man.
The hamster.
Because I'm a dog like that. Just kidding. If I'm a terrorist, I'm a dog like that. Brother, I agree. And I think that that would be something that they would look at. But also, I'm going to tell you, back when I was 20 years old, my ribs had rips, okay? And when I shot a weapon, I hit my target. Now I go out and I'm doing tactical shooting at the club, going down there hanging out with the cool kids down there, doing tactical shooting, and I'm stumbling around like I'm drunk, trying to get my weapon out, and I'm like, where'd that come from? Right? And I'm trying to get my weapon out and get drawn on my target, right? And I notice that, damn, I can't see the target. Okay? So, brethren, as we get older, a lot of our ability to do a lot of the things we did when we were younger, so I think our age adds to our vulnerability.
Yeah, put a green laser on mine.
Put a green laser in
Yes,
it?
sir.
So, I take a look at that, and I would say that is probably a pretty good assessment, right? I would say that I think, in my opinion, the probability is kind of high. But I would also say that the more we throw ourselves out there for the world to see, and the more that we have a presence on the internet, in our communities, and doing things, the higher our visibility becomes. So that increases the probability. Does that make sense? If we were quiet, standing in the corner, nobody would ever mess with us. But we're not. We're out there. We're doing our parades. We're doing this function, that function. We have a website. We're a growing lodge.
I've never opened the website for this lodge or any other lodge. Because I'm so unlucky. Some jerk will be at my front door stealing things from me.
And that's something that we didn't even talk about is theft, robbery of a lodge. I mean, I think that could probably, I think that's got a high probability, but I also think of this, we do have some really great passive measures here to protect the lodge. And I like that. And we're going to talk about some of these here in just a minute. So, we've got a risk index of 3. Did you write that down, brother? Risk index 3. Okay. Now what's our last one?
Single point of failure.
Single point of failure. I do business continuity. I studied a lot in college and wrote plans and stuff. And a lot of my friends actually in my field decided that that was something that they wanted to do, was business continuity. And what business continuity is and what it talks about is how to build resiliency in an organization. That when things go bad and things begin to fail, how do you maintain your business so that way you don't lose your business? And there's a lot of good companies out there that practice this as a way of doing business. They build that resiliency into it. And I would say that resiliency is the number one tool of combating single point of failure. Okay? But let's talk about that. What does that look like? Well, we know that we're going to lose our power, so we'll have to use the steps. We know that we are going to lose our comms, our communications. We know that we're going to lose our ventilation, right? And I think it also kind of opens us up to other failures, such as the possibility of a fire. Probably increases the possibility of a fire during that period of time. So there are a lot of things that we need to take a look at there. So do you guys think that that's a pretty good estimation as what the impacts of failure of our electrical system? That it would have the impacts on our ventilation, our lights, our communications, right? So what is the probability of losing those things as a probability? Are we looking at it not likely to happen? Are we thinking that it could happen? Are we thinking that it will happen at some point? Or do we think that it could happen often, or that it's an absolute certainty at some point it will happen?
Great.
You guys feel 3?
I don't agree.
Huh? You feel 5. I would say being a single point of failure for that, I say that it will happen because it's man-made, nothing's perfect, but let's take a vote real quick. We're Masons, that's what we like to do. We vote. Okay? So that being said, how many of y'all feel 3? Raise your hand. Or what? Single point of failure. We're saying that
I know, I
will
wrote
happen
number,
at some point.
what number? Wait,
3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. How many of you all say that it happens often? Okay, how many of you guys say it's an absolute certainty that it will happen? Raise your hand. Okay. So 4, some of y'all voted twice, you must be Democrats. I'm just kidding. Okay.
we're practicing.
So, that being said, we're going to go with 3. It will happen at some point. Right? Now, at some point, understand that that means tomorrow, tonight, to 1,000,000 years from now, some point. All right? Okay. So we're going to say 3. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at the impacts. How many of y'all feel that this is just going to be an inconvenience? How many of you guys feel that there'll be light or moderate property loss? How many of you guys feel that there'll be significant loss and indoor injuries? Okay. How many of you guys feel that there'll be heavy property loss, maybe some deaths?
Yeah.
How many of you guys feel that there'll be severe property loss and or death? Now remember what we're talking about. We're talking about single point of failure on our electrical system. Okay? Which affects our comms, ventilation.
Not associated with anything else?
No.
Okay.
So, for those of you that feel it is a 1, a mere inconvenience, raise your hand. 1, 2. For those of you that feel, so we'll go 1 has 2 votes. For 2, light or moderate property loss. How many of y'all feel that it's 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many of you guys feel that there'd be some significant loss or injury? 1, 2, 3. Well, I think that covers everybody. Okay, so impacts is equal to 2. So that's 6 divided by 5 is going to be 1.1. 1.1. Got it? Okay. So, now we've gone through this. We want to evaluate. And it's really, what the purpose of this is kind of to direct you to where you really truly need to focus your efforts, your energies. And then if you really want to get down into the finer detail, it'll give you greater definition as to what your actual risk is. But we're just kind of wanting to know where to look. We don't know where to look at. This here will tell us. So we said the highest risk is what?
Attack.
Huh?
3 for attack.
Okay, so attack is 3. Okay, and what's our next one?
Fire.
1.3.
Fire.
Single point failure is 1.1.
And the reason why single point failure is 1.1 is because the probability is not very high and the impact's not very high. Okay? So, based upon this, brethren, what do we need to kind of look at?
Attack.
Okay. So, let's talk about that for a couple minutes. Do we have anything right now to kind of thwart an attack? How likely is it that somebody's going to come into the lodge, be able to make it into the lodge?
Easy.
Huh?
Easy.
We've taken steps now, at least for the Blue Lodge, that we will lock the outer door before the Blue Lodge convenes. So, you know, you're going to have to call the Tyler.
Yeah, you're gonna send the Tyler down and let the terrorists in.
Yes.
With his sword.
Oh, your phone number's down there?
Exactly like that.
So
Oh, yeah.
we're trying to mitigate. We're also looking at security cameras for that single point of entry.
And it is a glass door.
Yeah.
The Shrine Temple put them in, and they saved themselves a couple of times already. Security cameras, et cetera, down on 40th Street.
Okay, guys, I want to throw some thoughts out there and just kind of let us think about this. Do we have values that we hold to be true? Do we have things that we say we believe in? Do we want to be true to that? Okay. Therefore, would we ever condone anybody packing weapons inside the lodge? See, this is what we need to talk about, because this is really what the crux of this is about. This is about, are we willing to advocate our values, our belief systems, to facilitate an agenda by someone that we may or may not ever see?
Depends on where you live. If you live in New York, the active left would probably increase.
Or
Here in
Detroit.
Prescott, Arizona,
So in California.
Different lodges have adopted different procedures and policies.
I think that's something that the brothers really need to consider. I think that we as a lodge need to figure out where we want to stand on this. I think, personally, I want my secretary to have a piece kind of close. I want my Tyler to have access to it.
I'll be absolutely frank with you. When I heard what was it, Minnesota, the Muslims were getting ready to attack that particular lodge, I had a flash vision that I was sitting at the secretary's desk, and I heard pop, pop, pop outdoor, and we lost the Tyler. But walked in, and I just pulled out and shot 3 right there in the head. And then I started thinking, well, shit, now I'm getting blood on the carpet.
And that's a major concern. That's at least $100 to clean up.
Exactly. Sure has to come out of my budget.
I tell you, I would
Buddy.
make a suggestion to the lodge. I would condone, carry in the lodge, but because we have a Tyler, you walk into the Tyler, I'm carrying live. He writes your name down before the lodge starts. That list goes to the worshipful master, and he understands, and it goes to the marshal, and he understands who's carrying.
I don't, because I believe what I believe. I believe I swore a promise. And I think my teachings kind of led me to that point that said that I would not carry a weapon into the lodge.
But that's back then. I've been a Mason 37 years, that's what it was then. It's different now.
Denny,
It's totally different now.
they hit Mesa.
I can't hear
And
you.
they hit Mesa, then they hit Gilbert, and then they hit Flagstaff. I'd sure think a lot different by that point in time.
Yeah.
As long as they don't hit Gilbert, that's where I'm from. The thing that I suppose that this is going to be something that the lodge as a whole is going to have to come down on what side that they want to do.
That's correct.
But I'm going to tell you that one of the things that is very susceptible in these types of events, that people start modifying who they are. I don't care about these people. I don't care if they live, they die. I don't care about them. I don't care about their agendas. That's me. I'm just being straight up, brother. I'm in Arizona.
Me too.
Okay? And we have always been raised growing up for rugged individual. You don't ask anybody for anything. You help your neighbor all the time. You do what you can do. But you stand on your own 2 feet.
That's right.
And when it's time to fight, it's time to fight.
That's right.
You're nice up until the point that it's not time to be nice anymore.
That's right.
And so that's what it meant to me growing up being in Arizona.
Right.
Now, that being said, from my perspective, man, I think once we enter that chamber, I don't think we need to be carrying in there. And I think there's some things that we need to maybe consider. And I'm just going to throw this out there for conjecture. And I'll be quite honest with you, whatever the lodge, my brother, my venerable brother, decide that they want to go with, that's what we go with. But that being said, let me share with you some options. We have a process that we call passive measures. And we have a process that we call active measures. Okay? What are passive measures? Those are those mitigating steps that we do to lessen the severity of a situation. I'll give you an example. We lock the door after it's time for the meeting to convene. Okay? And we may want to consider changing the type of door that we have.
Yeah, I agree with
Okay?
that too.
From a glass door that I can kick in
Too solid door.
to a solid door.
Right.
Okay? The other thing that we may want to do is put security cameras after mapping the building where we could go into the secretary's office and see 360 degrees around this building. And we'll know that somebody parked a truck next to the building. We'll know that we got a group of people that are congregating outside of the building. Okay? And then there's things that we can do at that point. We can call 911 and have law enforcement come and take care of it because they're loitering or whatever. Or we can go down there and take care of it ourselves. Send a brother. I'll carry a weapon. I'll go down. I'll do that. Okay? Well, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to make a proposal when I do my summary because it's really going to be dynamite and you guys are going to be happy. And I'm really glad that nobody's tapped out yet. Okay? But that being said, I really believe that that is a really good passive measure because it gives you a sense of awareness. It gives you situational awareness as to what's occurring on the outside. Okay? If you take a look up here, man, we've got light windows, but we have no windows to look out from the 3rd floor. If you go to the 2nd floor, we have small windows on one side of the building, but nothing on the other. Okay? So we really don't have visibility. And I think our customer, the bank, would probably appreciate that type of information. That would add to their overall profile for mitigation of any attempted robberies or anything like that. They would probably appreciate that.
Share the cost.
Possibly.
Share the cost.
Possibly. But that being said, I'm just throwing this out as conjecture, brothers. These are passive measures. And there's other things that we can do. We can prevent people from parking close to the building. Okay? That's another measure. If you go to any federal building, they got these really cool planters right out front that weigh about 400 tons. Okay? They got bars that are up there where you can't park so close to the building. The Fred Murrah building over in Oklahoma City is a good example as to why they do that now. Okay? Now, if you take a look at these are lessons learned across the way. These passive measures work. Okay? Are they overt? No. They're not overt. They're not in your face. Okay? But they are safety precautions and the safety measures. And the reasonable cost. Okay? So, what I would recommend is if we take a look at passive measures, then we may want to take a look at mapping out the building and really getting a plan together as to how we implement it, and then recommend it to the lodge trustees or to the lodge as a whole, and let the lodge make a decision if they want to do it.
It has been approved,
Okay.
but nothing has happened.
Well,
Now,
maybe,
Are we waiting for something to happen before we are acting, or what?
I'll tell you what, by the time we finish up, we'll have a way forward, okay? And I'll make a recommendation on how I would go forward if I was proposing this to the County Board of Supervisors.
That's correct.
Brother, I'll tell you what, let me share with you just a couple things and we'll close up and I serve the lodge. So however you want me to do, whatever you want me to do. But the other thing is when we look at passive measures, we're looking at things that's basically infrastructure oriented. Barriers, doors, locks on the doors, cameras. Now we already do some of this. Okay, we've got hard doors upstairs. This door here is a pushover. But the second floor door is pretty solid door. Okay? We can do some things about mapping out cameras as to where they best serve. These are good passive measures. They work. They work. They're used in every state and federal building in the United States of America, and they work. You don't see very many attacks on them. Okay? They work. Active measures, putting guys out there with guns. Okay? I say, when we're in heightened alertness, for whatever reason, because Denny may get a message from the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, and it comes across my desk or something like that, that says, hey, beware of this, right? Or the Homeland Security Information Network, then that might be something that if we're in a heightened, then we might want to take a look at maybe hiring some off-duty police officers to kind of stand outside and just keep watch. Okay? But I think that we ought to have a phased approach in our planning process that develops a security plan for the lodge that says that 99% of the time we're going to do this, this, and this, and it falls in this phase. And then whenever there's heightened awareness because there's a credible threat against the lodge, right, then we're going to step it up to this level right here. Okay? Guys, I think that's common sense. And I think the other thing that's common sense is everybody needs to know where the doggone escape hatches are.
Right.
You're damn right.
Okay? And we need to have a plan that lays all of this out, that's presented to the brothers in a lodge of instruction that says, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. And I'll be quite honest with you, brother, I pack, I carry, okay? But that being said, there are some things, it's like church. Man, if I get shot in church, I'm supposed to go to heaven.
That's right. Who's more help you in there to get shot?
I'm not there to slay terrorists. You know, that's kind of like the end game. You get shot in church, you go to heaven. That's what you're trying to do.